The following is a fan-based discussion. All properties discussed are property of Toei Inc., Bandai, Hasbro, and Subaraya Productions.
Hello everybody, welcome to another Tokutalk.
Yeah!
Jesus.
Again, what?
You do not have enough energy for this conversation.
We'll see.
Actually, you have too much energy for this conversation.
There you go. See, that was more accurate.
His
Yeah.
diaphragm can't handle the energy.
We're talking about Hasbro again.
Yes!
Mm-hmm.
This time, because of everything else that is happening with Hasbro, at least after Dino Fury, we're just going to do complete and utter speculation, not based on anything, except, just what we know so far going forward with them and that New Zealand company that they, E1, that is going to be doing, I guess, in Power Rangers, expanded universe type
The
of thing.
cinematic universe they're looking to delve into.
Yeah.
Television and
So,
movies as well.
where do you want to start?
Well, I think we should start with the question that Marcus posed to me via text. He asked me if they just stop adapting Power Rangers, if Power Rangers ceases to be, shall we say,
It ceases to be in its current incarnation.
Yes, would they sub Super Sentai instead?
I don't think they
Is
would.
that something that could be feasible?
I don't think it would be profitable.
Why?
Go on.
You would have to you'd have to release it on a service that costs money, either a streaming service or air it, and the vast majority of people who watch Super Sentai already watch it for free, subbed. It's not going to make them any money in the long run, because you're then trying to convince people to watch Power Rangers, which is usually a kid's show, but now it's Japanese with subtitles, blood, and cursing, that the FCC limitations of Power Rangers would probably...
We don't have to deal with that, really. It's Power Rangers. You can put on something like Netflix. Put on Crunchyroll, just like they did with Ultraman.
Well, that's... My point is...
Also, historically, when you give people a cheap way to acquire something, piracy goes down.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that's the thing that killed Napster. Was iTunes was like, oh hey, you can just buy this song for 99 cents. Oh, it's 99 cents. Oh, I don't need to pirate that. I can just boom, and there it is.
I don't think that this is going to be equivalent. Now, it depends on how it is presented, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
If they just release Sentai to Netflix, that could work.
Because I think it's actually already on Japanese. I know Kamen Rider is. I don't know if Super Sentai is on Japanese Netflix. But hey, it could possibly work.
It could work. Now, in terms of... Again, it's how it would be presented to us. If Hasbro came out with their own streaming service, I
would advise against that.
Everybody would advise.
Well, if they did, it would probably be. It might be on the Paramount Network.
Maybe
Paramount Plus.
But sorry, heartburn's acting up.
It's okay. Take your time.
If they tried to do it in the same vein that they do now, they're going to air it on Nickelodeon. They're going to air Sentai subtitled on Nickelodeon. It's going to crash and burn faster than the Hindenburg.
I agree with you 100%, but since we are really starting to be in the beginning of pivoting away from that format in the way we consume media, and we are really, the streaming wars are really starting to begin, and the option of watching something on cable with commercials is just becoming less and less viable. It's happening less and less every year.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100% that it would crash and burn if they were to just air it with subs on Nickelodeon, because that's just not the right audience for that sort of thing.
I'd say it would crash and burn if they aired it on any kind of television platform, period. Netflix especially, or Nickelodeon especially, but...
I think it depends on when and where.
I feel like people are more inclined to go online and watch it, not have to worry about commercials, not have to worry about being on at a specific time.
Then remove Nickelodeon from the equation. Who knows how much longer they're going to be on here.
I'm putting this in every possible scenario since it's pure speculation.
Fair enough.
So if it airs on TV, period, I think it crashes and burns, because TV's dying. No offense to TV, but it's kind of dying.
No offense to TV.
If it's on a streaming service, it depends on what streaming service.
That's what I said.
To make a slight correction, cable TV is dying.
Fair.
TV is still very much alive.
No, cable TV is dying.
Put it on something, like I said, put it on Crunchyroll. It's easily available. You can just put full seasons on there. Shout Factory already has a good portion of their stuff on, what is it, Tubi or Pluto TV? One of those
Pluto
two.
TV.
And they have all of their sub ones on there already.
The sad thing is, this is and I don't mean to be the negative Nancy at the table,
That's
but
fine.
Personally speaking, if it was added to Crunchyroll, I don't have Crunchyroll. I don't want to pay for the streaming service. I'm not getting it.
That's you.
I know. I prefaced that with personally.
But a lot of people do have... I mean, a lot of people enjoy Japanese television, whether it be anime or something else.
Oh, no, I
So
love anime.
Crunchyroll's got a pretty decent drama selection, too.
Yeah. Funimation, what have you.
I think...
Amazon Prime, Netflix, they all have their own, more or less Japanese areas and their own streaming platforms.
If here's what I think. If Power Rangers, as we know it, as an adapted format that we get, on a yearly or multi-yearly install base, if that were to just disappear, I don't think they should switch to just subbing Sentai instead, because even though one is adapted from the other, they're both very disparate. They're both made for two very different kinds of audiences.
Mm-hmm.
One, the minds, there is an inherent whimsy, shall we say, that is present in all of Japanese media that is designed to appeal to Eastern sensibilities. And when we take that, because Super Sentai and Power Rangers, aside from the suits, in terms of plot and characters, they usually have very little in common.
Usually, yeah.
It's what you call a point of departure adaptation. You take, maybe we take a couple of themes, maybe a couple settings, we take the suits in the case of something like this. But in terms of overall plot and story, there's usually very little that's similar. The villains will look the same, but they'll have different motivations, they'll have different relationships, they'll have, their personalities will sometimes be completely different, and same thing goes for the Rangers. Just subtitle Sentai, but try and apply Power Rangers sensibilities to that, you're gonna get some stuff that's it's not. I just don't feel like it would gel well.
No, I don't think it would either.
Because I do know that Power Rangers is dubbed in Japan, but
it used to be.
Regardless, it still was a thing that happened. But they're taking something that is designed for Western audiences, and they are redubbing it and retweaking it to make it. You're still filtering it through that Japanese principles and mentality of what they're looking for in entertainment. And I think that culture clash just it wouldn't gel well.
See, I would disagree.
Okay, why?
Simply because of the fact that we already have such a huge anime community.
Yeah.
Hold on, because both of y'all had your time.
Okay.
The reason I end up saying it like that, I think you're underestimating how aware of people are when it ends up coming to something like that. We already have their sensibilities coming through, especially when you have something like a slice of life anime. Mm-hmm. You're not going to end up having it be something like if it was a slice of life set in an American school or an American community or something like that. We're more or less in this general, not just general Tokyo community, but just the general Japanese appreciation community. We're already really aware of something like that.
And when you say we, you mean the three of us?
Just as a whole. I'm going to use the royal we here. We're already aware of pretty much how this show would differ from something, say, Arrow, or something of that nature, just how it would end up differing. So we know more or less how this would end up going, just as a show on its own. Now, if you're trying to apply it directly to Power Rangers, they don't have to call it that. They could just end up calling it Super Sentai and just the name.
Here is my, I want to say issue, but my counterpoint to that. When you compare it to the big anime community that we have nowadays. The key word, nowadays. How long did it take for anime to be so, I don't want to say mainstream, but as close to as mainstream as it is now versus 15 years ago?
Even then, it was still big. DBZ existed.
DBZ existed, but
Naruto existed.
But it had the stigma of being a cartoon for kids, and cartoons are for kids, and blah blah blah. We've had to outgrow, the anime community has had to outgrow, fight that stigma, and explain the fact that there are anime for all ages, and there are anime for kids, there are anime for adults only, and it's not just one or the other. There's a spectrum in between.
Yeah, like all entertainment.
What I'm saying is that the moment we put Sentai in there, we're back at the beginning. We have to. I
think you're overestimating on how big of a thing it's going to be.
I think you're overestimating, and you might accuse me of underestimating the reactions that we're going to get, because when we lived with the entire board of directors of the anime club at our college, the president, the vice president, the treasurer, they all came to our house to hang out. We still had to get them into Super Sentai. We still had to kind of explain to them that it's not just Power Rangers.
Well, that's because it was a different medium in that case.
What do you mean?
Live action. They didn't really watch anything live action.
But the same hurdles we're going to have to get over if we introduce Super Sentai and Kamen Rider to the Western audiences like it is.
It's a bit different now because we're sort of past that first point. When you have
with our community, yes, but we're trying to introduce this to the general audience. Not to mention something that occurred to me while we were talking. Any streaming platform this goes on is going to have own the rights to it in some capacity in order for them to make money off of it.
Shout Factory already did that.
But my point is that if we want it to be on a popular streaming service like Netflix is going to have to own some stake in the show for them to profit off of it. If it doesn't profit enough, which it won't.
They don't necessarily have to own stake, but they would have to license it.
If
it will get, I just feel like anything that will get added to Netflix like this will be canceled within a year, because I don't think the.
Well, it's just kind of how Netflix is.
Well, yeah, but I don't think the audience is big enough to sustain it. I don't think the audience is big enough to sustain it on a streaming platform like that.
See, we sort of don't know because we're basically just speculating.
I think that's kind of the point of this video.
No, it's something like you can't really say exactly what's going to happen because they have that whole glitter force.
No, I'm not saying that is what's going to happen. I'm saying that's what I think is going to happen.
Glitter force thing that happened with when they did that to Precure a couple years back. I don't know if they.
I also just know there is so much stereotype. I don't want to keep using the word stigma, but there is so much against any show that isn't dubbed in terms of a general audience. Yes, we have the anime community, but even in the anime community, there is a big fight of sub versus dub. People who prefer dubbed anime over sub anime and vice versa. I think there's going to be issues with that. People who I'm not going to let my kid watch something foreign that they have to read the subtitles if they're not at a high enough reading level. I think there's going to be a lot of gatekeeping because I'm sorry, there are toxicity in all fandoms. And that's going to I'm just worried that it's going to be dead on arrival.
Here's what I think. Marcus, to your point, I agree 1,000%. Anime and the love of specifically anime, that aspect of Japanese culture and the way that has bled into video games, especially, is more popular now in the West than it has ever been. It's huge.
But it was an uphill battle.
It was an uphill battle, but you also have to remember, the three of us, that is a circle we've lived in our whole lives.
Yep.
And this is a habit that I fall into, and it's a habit a lot of people fall into. You can't overestimate how many people are in that circle. Yeah, it's bigger now than it's ever been. Like I said, I agree 1,000%. Doesn't mean everyone will immediately be on board and know what it is. And
because if so, we'd have a lot more subscribers.
And I do agree with Matt that yes, there would be a hurdle to get through, but I'm not sure it would be
as massive as.
I don't know if it was because of the way we consume entertainment now, the way it is all so. Honestly, I think one of the biggest problems would just be marketing it. And Netflix in particular, I'm going to use them as an example here. They're terrible at marketing their stuff.
Yeah, that's valid.
So, I mean, how many... You look at the original anime that Netflix produces, they've got some really popular stuff on there that a lot of people like. Stuff like, Beastars, to pick a random example.
Beastars is a big one.
Is a show that
that's Netflix.
That's Netflix. It's a show that a lot of people.
I don't think it's Netflix produced.
It is. It's a Netflix original.
Oh, okay.
It's a show. That's a show that among anime fans is a really popular show. Lots of people love it.
It's good.
I didn't know that show existed until my brother mentioned it to me. Because Netflix does not ever, unless it's something like, what's an example of one that was something like, if it's a really big movie
or big like
something like Marriage Story,
or
because that got a lot of,
maybe The Witcher.
The Witcher is a good example, and I think something like Marriage Story is a good example, or The Irishman, where you have a lot of Oscar buzz behind it. Something like recently with Mank or Trial of the Chicago 7 where there's like a lot of Oscar push behind it as well.
The Crown.
The Crown's another great example. Stranger Things. Things that capture that zeitgeist, things that people latch onto when they tweet about. Those are the things you hear about, but something like Beastars, for as much as that show is beloved, it completely flew under my radar. Had no idea that show existed until somebody else.
I knew that show existed. I didn't know it was a Netflix original. Just to kind of prove your point. And
then like there's another show that I keep seeing on there called it's called Blood of Zeus.
Yeah.
Anime set in Greek mythology. I
hadn't heard about it until recently.
And it's just kind of like you turn it on, it's like, whoop, there it is. It was like, wait, what? Huh? What's this? And Sentai is something.
Michael and Lindsay talk about it.
I think that audiences would be, especially in this day and age, I think they would be more accepting of Sentai if it was subtitled. You would need to explain to them what it was, but I also think we need to give people a little more credit, because for as much crap as we can give the human race, for as much crap as we can give us for being stupid, I am no exception to this rule. We can be very quick to understand things. And we can be because my parents, they know what Power Rangers is because I watched it a lot growing up. Mm-hmm. And I tell them, I review, and I tell them about Super Sentai, and they're like, oh, you remember Power Rangers that I watched when I was kids? It's like that, but Japanese. And they go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And my parents don't watch anime. They don't watch, foreign film. Well, they watch foreign films, but not like Japanese, like pop culture stuff. It's something they're not inundated with. But you just give them that 2-sentence explanation and they understand what it is. It's like, oh, it's like Power Rangers, but it's Japanese.
No, and I absolutely understand what you're saying. I just, you want to give humanity the benefit of the doubt. I will give the benefit of the doubt to everybody outside this country. How about that? I just know, specifically in the U.S., that it will not do well. I don't think it'll do well. Anime is still fighting, stereotypes and...
I don't really think it is anymore. When you have something like...
You don't spend enough time on the internet.
Again, what corner of the internet are you spending time on?
A lot of them, actually.
You got to depend on where you're looking. Who is it that's saying these things? How many of them are saying these things?
Who's actually listening to those people?
Who's listening to them? So much of our communication and whatnot and our consumption that's done online these days.
Like anime YouTubers are so huge.
I don't feel like you can look at on average, how many places would you say? 5, 6, 7?
What's the question? Because I was trying to listen to both.
Sorry. You're talking about these stigmas that you feel are still
I see them daily.
You see them daily, but where is my question? Where and how often?
How often is daily? I see them on every social media. Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, everything. There is so much negativity.
Are all of them stigmas, or are some of them people poking fun at those stigmas?
No, they are legitimate people. There are people who are explaining actual conversations they've had with people who try to put people down because they watch anime. The amount of times that I've had to read comments on Mika Burton's Instagram saying you shouldn't cosplay this character because you're black. These people.
I think you're conflating this.
What do you mean?
You're just making this a lot bigger than it really needs to be. Where we're trying to sort of focus this on just these people saying, I say something bad about anime as a general thing.
I do think he has a point. Let's let him finish.
Yeah, but it's just that because these people are going to be the consumers that we're trying to pitch these shows to. There is a guy on TikTok that I started following, and he's strictly Toku. He is Power Rangers. He talks about Supaidaman, Kamen Rider, everything. And the amount of comments, because he has a SPD Green cosplay or a Deca Green cosplay, the amount of people who would be like Power Ranger fan, more like Pedo, comments on his Twitter, on his TikTok videos is just appalling. It's not one person. It's so many that he has to make a video acknowledging them all. Pretty much saying, fuck off. And more power to him, which, by the way, he's great. I'll look up his name in a minute. But just the fact that we are still fighting these stereotypes after 27 years later for Power Rangers. Being an adult and being a Power Rangers fan is not something that computes with the general audience anymore. An active Power Rangers fan, a nostalgic Power Rangers fan versus an active Power Rangers fan.
Marcus?
I understand you think I'm blowing this out of proportion.
Yeah, especially because I feel like it's
all right. I want to make sure everyone's
just the trolls, loud and obnoxious, as per usual. Hold on, just like they are on most anything, they could just be loud as they want, and their voices for some reason get heard. I just tend to ignore those people because who cares?
But you know who can't ignore those people? Corporations need to make money, which is like you can't ignore the trolls forever if they start affecting your bottom
line.
Why
is Hasbro making a whole cinematic universe?
Because they think it can make them money.
This couldn't?
I don't think it could.
I think it could. With the way that the internet is set up nowadays, the way what people watch, they watch. People watch anything.
Because of I think it'll make money. I don't think it'll make enough.
But who knows what's enough? They usually end up having
that's up to the accountants.
Yeah, they usually end up having like a bottom line. They could end up setting it low and end up having...
The only reason I think this would be profitable, the only thing I think this would be profitable is because the production cost goes down to almost zero. You pay somebody to produce the subtitles of the show.
Preferably somebody professional.
No shit.
Not Duwang.
No, always Duwang.
Not our friend David.
I would hope not.
But... Always David.
The joke is that he actually does do subtitles. He does get paid to do subtitles every now and then. But my point is, it's because the cost of production would be so low, any amount of money they make would have technically be considered a net profit. But...
Well, it also depends on how much you're paying for license fees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that too. That would be the biggest expense. And when that's the biggest expense, that shows how cheap it is to produce. Because God knows, until Beast Morphers, I'm assuming the licensing was probably still the most expensive part of producing Power Rangers.
I think that both of you make good points. Yes, there are always going to be toxic, horrible monsters out there who are let me finish.
I know. And
who are never going to stop being said things until either the internet goes out, or they die, or they get a figurative or literal slap on the face.
Maybe the second one or third one.
Whichever comes first. And
sorry, no, you finish.
And Marcus, I also think you make a good point. This is a gap that the loudest and the most obnoxious people seem to be the one who we always seem to give a voice to. Mm-hmm. You know, the mentality of don't feed the trolls never seems to work because they're never going to shut up. And
because the trolls' money spends just as much as the rest of us.
No. I just think it's not worth it really paying any attention to them.
And I agree with you. If we could do that, that'd be great.
I mean, to be fair,
cut this out if you want. Cut this out if you want, Marcus.
Mentality.
If we could just not listen to the trolls and you can cut this out. Donald Trump probably never would become president. If we could just ignore the fucking trolls.
I feel like there were a lot of things.
That's a little more complicated.
Yeah. That's why I say you can cut that out if you want. But let me also kind of give you an example of how trolls and toxic fandoms have affected even Western properties that are profitable.
Rooster Teeth,
nope.
Obviously.
No, I wasn't even going there. I'm talking about popular properties.
They are popular.
I mean, not this popular. Star Wars. Look at Last Jedi. Look at Rise of Skywalker. Last Jedi tried to do something different, and then Rise of Skywalker was like, correct the course. In terms of fan reactions.
I don't really agree with that.
Me either.
With which part?
Pretty much your whole statement about this.
Yeah. There's a difference between the fact
that is a conversation for off camera, but
Yeah.
I understand where you're coming from, but that's a conversation for
I'm
off
just trying
camera.
to say, like, what I'm trying to refer to is that the Star Wars that we have now is very different from the Star Wars from 1977 through 1980. I forget when.
86.
86? Wow. Okay, I thought there was more. I thought there was less of a
86 was Return of the Jedi.
No, they actually spaced those ones out. And then we got those Christmas special.
The holiday special.
And it's
It was
also very
life-giving.
different from episodes 1, 2, and 3. When fans can voice their opinions so fast. You know, I'll give you a better analogy. Batman vs. Superman, when it premiered, dropped, I think, and the number might be off, but it's not that far off. In terms of its box office numbers, dropped 86%. And
It wasn't 86. It was like 61, I believe.
my apologies. The box office numbers from opening weekend to the following weekend dropped significantly because of the hate it got online. Whereas Jacob and I adore that movie.
I do.
I hate that movie.
Each their own.
But the point
It was
is,
divisive, we know.
but the point is when something is divisive, and there's so much hate on the internet, people either will agree with the haters or they don't want to get involved. They don't want to be a part of that. They don't want to be a part of the argument, so they'll just step back, go for it.
Sorry, I want to try and pivot us back to
where we are.
Back to
No,
where
you're.
we need to go.
I'm just trying to give an analogy. That's
No,
all.
I understand you just trying to give context, which is never a bad thing when you're trying to discuss things. I appreciate that. I think that the gap is gonna grow narrower with each passing year.
My concern is that it just won't make it to like. My concern is that because things get canceled so quickly these days, I don't think it'll make it.
Matt, you're right, especially when you're talking about a studio like Netflix. However,
snip, snip, snip.
However, anything's possible.
I know.
It is completely possible when we're dealing with hard speculation like this. For all we know, if Netflix announces tomorrow, hey, guess what? The first 40 seasons of Super Sentai are coming to Netflix tomorrow, subtitled.
I'd be ecstatic.
Yeah, surely everyone at this table,
let me
mostly
also
everyone
specify,
watching at home,
in case people
they'd be
are
ecstatic.
confused. I'm not trying to be a hater. I'm just trying to be a realist.
There is a stigma that anytime someone sees something they don't understand or that they're not familiar with or that goes against what they personally believe something should be, there's going to be a stigma.
Time judges and changes all. Comrade O said that.
Time judged all.
I'm just worried. It's just worry because this year has made it abundantly clear that things that should work out don't work out the way you think they should because not everything in the world is right and just. I just think that if Sentai tried to make a break in the mainstream world, in the Western world, I think it's trying to start a race with both your feet tied together. I really don't think it is. I think it just has too many disadvantages going against it at the gate.
Well, the only way to know for certain is for it to actually happen.
And I actually am going to really hard disagree on that because of one thing.
What's that?
What's streaming right now? Or rather, what comes out every week on YouTube?
Are you referring to by any chance?
No.
Okay.
I'm referring to
Sorry.
Ultraman.
Oh, right, yeah.
Ultraman Z comes out every week along
It
with
does
the
start
other
with a U.
along with the other show that's
It comes out
right
on
now.
what? YouTube?
Yeah.
My only concern and my only counter to that is that YouTube is a worldwide app. There's not I could go and find a video that was uploaded from Japan and it's not I'm assuming, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it's not a corporation. It's not Toei.
Yeah.
It's
Tsuburaya's official YouTube channel is subbing this and releasing it.
Every week a new episode of Ultraman
and just putting it out there for free.
Along with the Ultraman Resident. And a lot of people, at least over every single episode, at least over 500,000 every single time. Toei could do something like that. I'm actually surprised they haven't.
Now,
especially considering how popular simul subs are getting,
and they still have the actual ad
dubs.
Yeah, they still have the actual ad placements. They still have the commercials.
I'm sure. I'm just saying, because we all know how little the YouTube monetization actually pays people. But is that...
Once those numbers start building up.
Valid. But is that enough to continue? I guess maybe Toei's trying to use that as a guinea pig.
No, because it's super right.
Different company.
But
they can still use it as an example.
Although Toei is like posting more and more stuff. They posted some things about Kuga. Recently, they posted like all of the Heisei openings, creditless, by the way.
Right, and I get that. But what I'm saying is that because
that.
YouTube is a purely global app, that means the viewership comes from all over the world. Whereas if something came to, again, I'm going back to Netflix, it depends on what version.
But they don't have to do it on that.
I know, but I'm...
Just as an example.
Yeah, just an example. It depends on what it's at the very beginning. It depends if they want to stream it, what app is it coming out on, which will probably kind of make or break whether or not it's successful. Let me also make one thing abundantly clear. I want to be wrong. I would give anything to be wrong and not have to explain to somebody that I work with what my YouTube channel is about and get that just dazed, I don't give a shit look on their face. I would give nothing more than that. But the amount of times I've had to just watch something like that die, it just...
But the thing is, let's just remove Hasbro out of the equation. Because if Toei does it themselves, then there's nothing, really wrong with them doing that.
No.
They just do it, put it out themselves, make money that way.
Okay.
It's that easy. They did it with Ultraman. They've been doing it with Ultraman because they're not just releasing Z, they're doing it with other shows around the same time.
Yeah, and I would also like to point out that YouTube is free. So,
Yeah.
it depends on what app it gets released on.
I feel like
if
you look at something like Super Riot with what they're doing, they could just put the entire catalog just on YouTube. Bam. Easy. Done.
And
We're
I
good to
would
go.
die laughing if the YouTube algorithm automatically blocked their videos for copyright. Would die laughing.
It is the algorithm. The algorithm is not always great, but at the same time, because
that was just a joke.
Their own...
I know.
You're saying it's a joke, but you're right.
Yeah. Because Toei puts out for others, it'll be a little bit different doing it on themselves.
Right.
Although we have seen that happen in the past before. Stupid things have happened. But it's like, we end up seeing what Super Riot does every week, and it's working.
Is it working? We don't know because we don't know the numbers of how much it's making. That's the thing.
I think
we
there
know
is
it's getting we know it's getting views. We get that, but we don't.
Well, I can't see their studio page. How much they're making.
That's why I'm saying we don't know if it's
just the AdSense
working
and their
We don't know the average watch time.
You don't know the average. I think there is an analytics page where you can actually see that. And we don't know how much they're making. Like, I have YouTube Premium. You get money when people watch your videos from YouTube Premium. Mm-hmm. So when you end up having things like that, there are so many outside influences that can certainly be helping, especially when you have in the show proper showing the actual commercials for like the Ultraman mobile game, for the Ultraman like the clothing line that they have, the toys. You have so many other things that people are going to see like, oh, I want that because I've seen some of the Ultraman like shirts on there, and I'm sitting here like, if they have it in my size.
We just don't have enough information about those views, where they're coming from, how much it's making. Because for all we know, 75% of those views could be coming from Japan. And if that's the case, I know, but if that's the case, that doesn't say that it'll work in a Western audience.
But they're just putting on something global. You're not losing anything.
Which is why I said it depends on what app it goes on.
I feel like YouTube is a good one to do. Since it's just there.
I think YouTube, honestly, my argument against YouTube is just how much it
weird
seems how weirdly they seem to treat their content creators.
Solo ones, not companies.
Yeah, I guess. Markiplier would like a word with you. He was pissed.
Anyway.
But I really am sorry that I went on such a negative.
About to say, you became me.
I know.
Who are you?
Somebody had to.
Get out of my Caucasian house.
I know I hit the table. If anything deserved a table hit, it was that.
5 points for whoever is getting that reference. Look at Joan the Scammer.
I think that's a great note to end this on. What about you?
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think in the comments down below. And again,
boy.
I apologize if I triggered anybody by being so negative and hateful. But as always, we'll see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for watching.
Pat on my cup.
Feel free to edit me out of that video completely.